So hello everyone, today we'll learn something about databases, collections and documents. Basically we'll understand these terms, that what are databases and collections and documents, and before starting the development we should have some basic understanding of these three terms. So actually the database is simply understand it as a container or a big container which contains some other collections. For example, in this big box I have created this collection, and inside that I have created documents. So collections, you can understand if you are from the SQL background, so you can consider it as a table. So in a table there are some like rows and columns. There are some rows and columns are there for storing the data. Similarly, in MongoDB, there is one database which also there are some other databases. We can also create that. But in a database, you will find one collection which contains the basic document. So what is this document actually? This is the main data piece which will be storing our all data which which will be creating. So that will be stored in actually in this document in a JSON format or similar to JSON format. We'll be storing the actual data in these documents, but these documents will be grouped into the collections and the collections will be grouped into the databases. So this is the basic idea of MongoDB storing the data. So let's start the development, or let's start showing the databases. Let me show you what is the databases in MongoDB and how can we access that. For that you need to go to the CMD again, and we'll work with the Mongo shell. So you just need to write Mongo here and make sure your MongoDB is running in the background. That automatically will be running because we, while installing, if you remember, we installed MongoDB as a service, so it will always be running that way. So we don't have to write the command mongo for starting the MongoDB MongoDB server. Will directly be entered into the Mongo shell if we write this Mongo, because we installed MongoDB as a service, so it will automatically be running in the background. So you can just write Mongo here, and if I press enter, then you can see that I am in the MongoDB shell now. I can clear the previous these things which are there. So I can write just CLS and the things will be clear. And now you can write the commands which are from MongoDB shell, and we are using MongoDB shell or Mongo shell because I've told you that I don't know like which application on which you are working. If you want to work with the Python, you need to download the MongoDB driver for Python, and you have to embed that or integrate that into your Python code. And if you are working with Node.js, similarly you have to download the MongoDB driver for the Node.js, but the syntax will be changed only. So before understanding the concept in real application or the real development environment like Node.js or any programming language or any server-side language, before jumping to that, we'll be learning in MongoDB shell, and the basic commands are similar in both of them, but the syntax are changed a little bit. So first we'll grasp the knowledge of MongoDB shell, and then we'll be jumping towards Node.js, and we'll connect MongoDB driver of Node.js, and we'll actually be implementing all of the stuff we'll learn in the MongoDB shell. So for the MongoDB shell to show all the databases, we have the command which is show DBs. So for showing the databases which are there, you can write show DBs, and you can see there are already created some databases which MongoDB already prepared for us, but we don't have to work on them because these are the like default databases which are created by MongoDB. You can see that admin, config and local is there. These databases are for the MongoDB configuration, so we don't have to work on this. But this admin database, you can, like in this you can create user and roles, and how like MongoDB should be accessed by the users, or who can access the MongoDB from your MongoDB shell. For that you can create the users and password. That is for that. So we'll not be jumping to that. We'll jump on to them like in user roles. When we'll create working with the user roles in MongoDB shell, then we can start working on that. Let me just show you how you can access the collections in, or first we can how you can create a basic database, like your own database. There are 3 databases, right? So for creating a database, you just use that database because MongoDB automatically will be creating that. For example, I'm creating a shop database or anything, so I can just write use shop or shop db, whatever you can name that. You can name it. You can see that it is saying that switch to db shop. So if I show db again, we can see the database is not implemented yet, and we are still seeing the 3 database only. So where is that database shop? So actually it will be created unless we add some data into the shop database. So for that we'll be working with the collections, and for that we'll be just writing the data. So for that we are already switched to the database, so we'll be just writing the command to insert collection, and we'll entering the data into them. So let me just clear the screen. And for writing any document into the database, we'll just be using the command db dot, and then you have to write the collection name. So we can write the collection name which are already not created, so it will automatically be created because MongoDB helps with that. So we can create a database we can create the collection groceries. For example, I'll be creating db.groceries, and then inside that I can access one method which is insert one, or I can insert one for inserting the data, and there are other commands as well. For example, find is there. So similar to that, we'll be using the methods for inserting, finding, and all the CRUD operations which we do normally. For that we'll be using the methods in this groceries collection. So we are storing the data in groceries. That's why I put db.groceries. So this groceries will automatically be created. So let's insert one data. I can write insert one. This is the command which you can find into the MongoDB documentation as well. But first we'll be jumping the MongoDB commands, and then we'll be jumping to the application which is the Node.js. So insert one is the command. Inside that you have to write one object, you can say. So a document is similar kind of object which you see in JavaScript. So it is similar to that, and you can compare it with JSON as well because that is also similar to that. So we can just write the curly brackets, and inside that we can just type our data inside into this curly brackets, and as key value pairs. So we have to write the data in key value pairs. So I can write that. You have probably seen, if you're from the JavaScript background, so you have probably seen that how the objects work and how the JSON data is, how the JSON data looks. So we can also create the JSON data inside that. So we'll be creating that. So let me just write a name for the data which we are inserting. So I can write name. I can also type different kind of data inside that. I can also store the different kind of data. For example, if you want to store the string, you can write it into the double quotes, and I can write for example, I'm writing cake, for example. So I have written cake here, and after that I can put a comma, and then I can put the other property there, so or other key value pair. So for example, now I'm writing the price for that. So let me just write price. So I can write price as 250. So this I have written it as a number, so that's why I haven't used double quotes in them. And after that I can put double quotes currency, I can write. or anything. I can write currency as USD or anything. I can also write the Boolean type of data, for example, is expired or anything. If I want to add, I can write it false here. So you can see that for the false also I haven't used double quotes because that is not a string. And this is how we are working. Okay, we haven't used double quotes here, so I have to use that also. So this is how we enter the data normally. If I press enter now, so that data will be inserted. So you can see that it is saying that acknowledged true and inserted ID. So what is this ID? Actually, whenever you add any document to a collection in MongoDB, it automatically generates the ID for each of the document, because the documents should have the unique ID to distinguish between them, have a difference between them, so we can recognize them with the ID as well. And that ID helps us in many situations. So like you can sort them with the ID and something like that. You can get the timestamp also, like how which document is inserted at the last, or which one was in the recent which was the recent document inserted, which was the first document inserted, something like that. So we can also uh, grab this thing with the help of this ID. So this is how we insert our data. And now if I want to see this data, so I can just write the command find or find one. We'll learn about these commands in the detail in the future videos. Let me just write the find command. So this find command, what it will do is it will show you all the documents which are in groceries collections. So I can use this find command. And also if I press enter, then you can see that it is showing me the same data which we inserted, and you can see that it is also showing me this underscore ID which we haven't inserted, but it was inserted by MongoDB automatically. We can also add pretty after that. So this data is coming on one line, so it is hard to read, that's why I'm using pretty. So it will come like this, so it is easier to read, so that's why I've used pretty after that. So you can see that the one additional field which MongoDB gave us, which is underscore ID, is added. And what is this object ID? It is also the type which MongoDB supports, just like others like number, booleans and strings. This is also one type which MongoDB supports, object ID. So we'll be talking about this in the videos, in the future videos. So this is how we insert a data, and more specifically, how do we insert the document into a collection. So if I now show DB, so you can see that shop is there, because shop is having some data, that's why it is showing shop now. So in this video we learn about documents, databases, and how to insert the database and find the data which you inserted by the commands. We'll be learning more these commands which you saw just now, like insert, one, and find, in the future videos. Till then, bye bye, and thank you for watching the video.